Welcome to episode 12 of our Chaia series of biblical reflections for our life of faith, for life and light. Today we base our reflection on the text that can be found in the various chapters of Genesis 6, 7, 8, and 9, selected verses only. And today we deal with the story of the great flood in those chapters, featuring the main character, which is Noah. And this story is actually part of what we would call as the prehistory stories of Israel, from Genesis 2 to 11, telling us of the predicament of the human being right after they have committed that great disobedience to our God, and as they face the consequences of living lives of utter wickedness, immorality, corruption, violence, engaging in evil schemes, and abuse of power, totally distorting and disregarding the will of our Creator for the good and the benefit of all creation. The human being has actually misused and abused the freedom, the gift of freedom given to us by God. And this resulted in the complete alienation of the human being from his Creator. So this time, creation is backsliding, reverting back to the chaos of the very beginning, embracing once again the life of living in darkness, rather than enjoying the life in the light of God. Creation has reverted back to the time of the great disorder, lack of coherence, and breakdown of peace and harmony in the community. And that is why God has to step in the midst of all this chaos. God has to decide to stop this rising state of wickedness, a great immorality, corruption, and violence that is taking place. God viewed with so much sadness and disappointment what has happened and what has been happening to his creation. He must be shaking his head in disbelief with the gift of freedom given by God to the human being. Most of them made the wrong choices, the wrong decisions, all for their own self-interest only. As it says in chapter 6, verse 5, every inclination of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually. Their hearts were filled with nothing but their own cravings. Whatever has become object of their desires, what will bring about satisfaction of their material, physical, and sensual wants. This was the state of humanity descending to its lowest level. And this is where we have reached the state of utter wretchedness. What was the initial response of God, the Creator, in this situation? As it says in Genesis 6, verse 6, the Lord was sorry that he had made humankind on earth, and it grieved him to his heart. And this is where we see God feeling so sorry about his own creation. God knows this is the result of the human's misuse and abuse of the gift of freedom from God. And that is why God felt so sorry, as it is as if the risk that God took in granting freedom to the human being has failed to bring out the desired result. And that is why God, feeling so disappointed, so sorry, has to decide to stop all this. And even if he's feeling so sorry, God has to declare that he will have to blot out the whole human race from the face of the earth, all these humans that God has created, together with all the animals on the earth, and all creeping things, and all the birds of the air. And not one of them will be spared, except for one, Noah and his family. It is only Noah who found favor in the sight of God. It is only Noah who used his freedom with great responsibility, with much sensitivity and deep consciousness of his accountability to his Creator God. And that is why he really lived the righteous life. And so even in the midst of much corruption, immorality, wickedness, violence all over the earth, God found one man who did not succumb to the temptations offered by his freedom. One man who persisted to live according to the Word of God. No matter what pressure, what temptation, what opportunities for personal gain the dominant society has been offering him. And usually, the ones that try their best to live and uphold the righteous life are those who belong to the very small minority. They are usually quite outnumbered in a society dominated by what is popular, fashionable, trending, and catering to much individualism and sensual delight. Noah thus found favor with God along with his family. And so God decided that it is only Noah with his family whom God will save from the flood. And so God instructed them, Noah and his family, to build an ark with certain specifications where they can stay for the rest of the duration of the rains and the flood that will come, along with every pair of all animals, so that their kind, their species, can be preserved for the future. And so, according to Genesis 7 verse 11, the rains came as the windows of the heavens were opened, and the fountains of the great deep burst forth. Thus the flood came and persisted for 150 days. Genesis 7 verse 24. As Noah, his family, and all the animals that were with him remained in the floating ark for the duration of such flood. After 150 days, God remembered Noah, and the flood waters began to subside as the windows of the heavens were closed, and the rains from the heavens were restrained. In the 10th month, the tops of the mountains began to appear, while the ark of Noah came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, somewhere in northeastern Turkey. Eventually, Noah sent off a raven to check the conditions outside. And then later, this was followed by a dove which found no place to set its foot. So it returned to the ark and Noah. After waiting for 7 more days to allow the waters to further subside, Noah again sent out the dove, and later in the evening it returned to the ark, bringing along in its beak a freshly plucked olive leaf, indicating that the waters have completely subsided and that plants are now able to grow again on earth. Upon the command of God, Noah got out of the ark together with his family and all the other pairs of animals there in the ark to begin life anew on earth. These survivors of the great flood now becomes the origin of the new humanity. The surviving animals became the new creatures to repopulate the earth that was supposedly cleansed already by the flood. Thankful for this new opportunity to live life anew, Noah built an altar and offered burnt offerings to the Lord. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing odor from this offering, God then said, I will never again curse the ground because of humankind, for the inclination of the human heart is evil from youth, nor will I ever again destroy every living creature as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. This is God's promise to Noah, God's self-imposed commitment and to Noah and the rest of creation right after the flood, sealed even by the sign of the regularity of the seasons. To be sure, God knows what is in the heart of the human. God knows that the inclination of the human heart is evil right from his youth. Humankind remains corrupted and prone to sin. The flood actually has not changed the nature of humanity. The human can always exercise his freedom not for the common good, but only for his own self-aggrandizement, for the advancement only of his own self-interest, and to seek only that which is good for oneself alone. God has actually acknowledged this human condition, which has not been changed by the flood. The human heart has not been cleansed at all, nor transformed towards becoming a really new being. The flood has not done that. Nothing has changed after the flood, except for one. God himself was the one that has changed. From a God who felt so sorry and was grieving in his heart that he has created humankind at all, from a God who has been so filled with righteous indignation in his heart and so eager to bring about punishment to his creatures, now this God becomes a God so full of grace and compassion towards humankind, even if there has been no sign of humankind's being transformed and cleansed by the flood. Nevertheless, even if God knows that humans never deserve such gesture of his own mercy and grace, still God made his promise to Noah. Never again will I curse the ground because of humankind. Regardless, or even if the inclination of the human heart remains evil from youth, nor will I ever again destroy every living creature as I have done. It is this never again promise of God that gives us hope, even in the face of the most tragic events taking place on our earth. Yes, so many calamities, tragic and destructive events have been taking place all over the earth, claiming thousands of lives every now and then. The latest of which is that massive flood that swept one major city in Libya, in the city of Derna, which has left more than 10,000 people dead in that massive wave of the waters that swept them after the collapse of a big dam near the city. And in the nearby area of Morocco, there has been a massive earthquake that has left thousands of innocent residents dead and more injured and left homeless with their houses totally destroyed. Floods, earthquakes, typhoons, these are happening more regularly now in our country and everywhere else. We are considered actually as the country most severely affected by this phenomenon of climate change due to the worldwide environmental deterioration, massive floods, powerful, deadly earthquakes, super typhoons that are becoming more common, unprecedented heat even when it is not summer, unprecedented rains even when it is summer. Our world has seemingly been thrown out of balance when abnormal weather and nature phenomena has become the new normal, and when deadly destructive calamity becomes ordinary, and when massive destruction and deaths become a regular occurrence that it could begin to numb us. But one thing we can be sure of: God has not broken nor forgotten His promise to us. It is us humans who have failed to live up to the expectations of such divine promise. We have lived our lives here on earth unmindful of our being recipients of a divine promise with a corresponding obligation. We forgot our obligation when we were originally placed by God in His garden to till it and to keep it or care for it. We have failed in our obligation to keep and care responsibly for God's garden, which is our own home. We have become driven more by the inclinations of our heart to advance first our own selfish interests, driven by our greed, fueled by our motivation to acquire what we believe will make us more powerful, economically secure, politically, yes, powerful. We are the ones who forgot, not God. God is correct in saying that the inclinations of the human heart is evil from youth. And God is just sorry for that. But that is not the last word from God. The last word from God in this episode is a promise which in chapter 9 was even made part of a solemn covenant commitment of God to all creatures, not just to Noah and all humans, but to all other creatures, even animals and others. To all of us, God's creatures, we remain recipients of God's enduring generosity of provisions, protection, and gracious and compassionate attention. God is not to be defined anymore by anger and desire to punish, but more by that divine resolve to remain gracious and compassionate to all creatures, no matter how undeserving we are as God's creatures. Finally, we can look at Noah as our father through his three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, as the father of all human races. Wherever, whoever you are, whatever place on earth you are coming from, we are brothers and sisters, children of our one father, Noah, the only one who found favor in God's eyes, though he has his own imperfections too. We can be so thankful to him for his steadfast commitment to remain clinging to the righteousness of his God, in spite of the great difficulty and amid the great pressure for him to give up. Because of him, we remain living with hope that in spite of whatever is happening these days, we can also, like Noah, have the resolve and the faith to remain clinging on to our God in Jesus Christ and his righteousness, that leads to our salvation and justification. Well, thank you once again for watching and following our series. If you have been blessed by this reflection, please continue to subscribe, like, and share this to your friends. Next time, we will reflect on the following story of the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11, verses 1 to 9. So please read ahead. And once again, thank you so much, and God bless.